Welcome to the HSE General Induction Training. This presentation is free to use and intended for educational purposes. If you need assistance with health, safety, and environmental matters, feel free to reach out. You can find our contact information at www.dgfturnkey.co.za. In South Africa, the construction regulations require that all personnel, including employees, contractors, and visitors, undergo site-specific health and safety induction training before entering a construction site. The induction training must address hazards prevalent on the site and ensure appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE, is used. This training provides a general overview and may not cover all the hazards of your specific site. Always ensure a local induction is conducted where necessary. Let's look at the legal foundations. The Constitution of South Africa forms the supreme law of the land, defining our rights and responsibilities, including health and safety. The Occupational Health and Safety Act seeks to provide for the health and safety of persons in connection with the use of plant and machinery, the protection of persons other than persons at work against hazards to health and safety arising out of or in connection with the activities of persons at work, to establish an advisory council for occupational health and safety, and to provide for matters connected therewith. In this context, legal compliance is the process by which a company adheres to the applicable laws in South Africa which regulate how the business practices or operates. Compliance involves understanding the legislation that applies to the business. In the context of law and regulations, a hierarchy of compliance generally refers to the layered structure of rules and guidelines that organizations must adhere to. This hierarchy typically starts with broad, overarching principles and standards, and then progresses to more specific regulations, policies, and procedures. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all levels of an organization are working in accordance with legal and ethical requirements. Let's take a look at the hierarchy of compliance. At the very top we have the South African Constitution, the supreme law of the land which among others, establishes the protection of human rights. Second, is the Occupational Health and Safety Act which is a primary source of law that defines the legal system, certain duties and responsibilities, and outlines applicable structures and defines requirements and potential offences. Regulations help apply the law by providing specific instructions. Codes and standards give technical requirements to designers, operators, and users of equipment to ensure safe work environments. Everything we do must comply with the applicable standard, the applicable regulations and the OHS Act. Non-compliance with a lower level, codes and standards, is non-compliance with a higher level, regulations. And so on. Let's take a look at two very important aspects of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Duties of the employer and duties of the employee. Employers are charged with certain duties as per the OHS Act. Employers are required to maintain a safe risk-free work environment, ensure all machinery is maintained, kept safe and risk-free, reduce any hazard to the best of their ability before resorting to PPE. Ensure that the production, handling, processing, use and storage or transport of substances is safe and risk-free. Understand all hazards and what measures should be taken to protect all on a site from these hazards. Simply put, it's an employer's duty to protect anyone who may be affected by their work or their business. Have you ever heard of the saying, "Every coin has two sides"? Well, just as employers are charged with certain duties, so are employees. Let us take a look at what some of those duties are. Every employee must take reasonable care for the health and safety of themselves and other persons who may be affected by his or her actions or lack thereof. Consider the duties placed on the employer by the Act and cooperate with such an employer to enable that duty or requirement is performed or complied with. Carry out any lawful order, obey the health and safety rules by employer or someone appointed by the employer in the interest of health and safety. If a situation arises that is unsafe, report such a situation to his or her employer or H&S representative. If involved in an incident that may affect his or her health or which has caused injury, report such an incident to the employer or H&S representative as soon as possible but before the end of the shift. Risk assessment is a core process which is used to eliminate or reduce risks. This process may at first seem daunting or difficult. Yet, many of us conduct risk assessments daily and don't even know it. The difference in a work environment is that law requires this risk assessment to be, amongst other requirements, documented. Let's look at some definitions which will help us in understanding what a risk assessment is. A hazard is any source of danger or potential danger. Risk refers to the probability of that danger actually causing harm. Understanding this helps us prevent incidents before they occur. A simple risk assessment process is to identify a hazard, then identify the risk associated with that hazard, then implement control measures which will either eliminate that hazard, or substitute that hazard for a less dangerous one or control the exposure to that specific risk. The key to compliance is to ensure that the controls are aligned with requirements of the applicable regulations, codes, and standards. The hierarchy of controls is a safety strategy used to eliminate or reduce risks. When implementing controls, start by eliminating the hazard, if possible. Then try to substitute it for something less hazardous. Then apply engineering and administrative controls. And only use PPE as a last resort. Risk assessments will be covered in detail in later courses. Check in regularly or contact us for more information regarding the training required. Here are some examples of controls. Engineering controls refer to physical or mechanical systems designed to isolate or remove hazards from the workplace, thereby reducing the risk of exposure to workers. Administrative controls are methods of managing workplace hazards by modifying work practices, procedures, and policies. They aim to reduce the duration, frequency, or intensity of exposure to hazards by changing how work is done. PPE, personal protective equipment, controls refer to the use of physical equipment worn by individuals to minimize exposure to hazards in the workplace. PPE acts as a final line of defense against risks when other control measures are not sufficient or feasible. Always remember that controls must comply with the applicable codes and standards. Ask yourself, what am I exposed to? What could go wrong? And what can I do to manage the risks? Awareness and being proactive are key to safety. Recognizing safety signs and their meanings are vital. Safety signs consist of 3 components: a shape, a color, and text or a picture. Safety signs fall under the administrative controls category and provide vital life-saving information. Always obey safety signs. If you are unsure, never take chances. Familiarize yourself with color codes and warning labels around your work environment. Here are some examples of safety signs which may be present in your work environment. Good housekeeping prevents many types of injuries, from slips and trips to falling objects and fire hazards. It also reduces material waste, improves productivity, and maintains site morale. Housekeeping should ideally not be an end-of-day task. Housekeeping should always be maintained as far as is possible throughout the work shift. This must effectively change the way things are done as far as housekeeping is concerned. Here's a list of things that can be prevented with good housekeeping practices. Remember the golden rule. There's place for everything, and everything is in its place. Manual handling is broadly defined as any activity where a person uses their own body strength and force to lift, carry, push, pull, hold, manipulate or otherwise move objects. Manual handling can lead to strains, sprains, and injuries. Always assess the load and its shape, choose the safest and shortest route, and use the right lifting techniques. Also consider hazards and risks en route to your destination while carrying loads. Avoid twisting and use mechanical aids when needed. PPE is essential for protection. PPE should only be used as a last resort after all other safety measures have been implemented. PPE being used must be appropriate to the hazards and risks that an employee may be exposed to. Here are some examples which may include hard hats, ear plugs, goggles, dust masks, gloves, and steel-toe boots. Before using any PPE, ensure that you know the following minimum criteria. 1. PPE limitations. This is the maximum that a specific item can withstand before failing. 2. How to use PPE correctly. 3. How to maintain PPE. 4. How and where to dispose of PPE. 5. How to inspect PPE for wear and tear or damage. 6. When to replace PPE. 7. How to store PPE. Never use substandard PPE. Always ensure that your PPE is suitable for the hazards and risks you may be exposed to. Previously, under the Hazardous Chemical Substances Regulations, HCS were defined as any toxic, harmful, corrosive, irritant or asphyxiant substance, or a mixture of such substances for which an occupational limit is prescribed, or an occupational limit is not prescribed, but which creates a hazard to health. Currently, under the Hazardous Chemical Agents Regulations, this definition is aligned with the Globally Harmonized System, GHS. Hazardous chemical agents generally include anything toxic, corrosive, irritant, or harmful to health. Always ensure that before HCAs are used, a risk assessment is conducted, and controls are implemented before using any HCAs. Here are some important notes that are applicable to HCAs. 1. Safety Data Sheets or SDS. This is a 16-point document that tells you all about a specific HCA. B. This document must always be readily available and contains extremely important information. C. An SDS must not be older than 5 years. Always ensure that you have the latest copy available. 2. Routes of entry and effects on the human body. When working with HCAs, consider how that chemical can enter the human body. Some chemicals can enter through skin absorption, others can be inhaled or ingested. Some can even enter through the eyes and ears. B. Also consider what effects these HCAs may have on the human body. Some may be carcinogenic, others corrosive, and some can be toxic. 3. Storage and separation. A. Always consult an SDS. B. Some HCAs may have specific storage requirements. Also consider spillage containment, first aid measures and firefighting measures. C. HCAs may sometimes require separation from other HCAs that they are not compatible with. 4. Decanting. A. Decanting simplified is basically transferring part or all of an HCA from one container to another. B. The basic rules of decanting are that the type of container and labeling of the parent container should also be the same as the container that the HCA is being transferred to. 5. PPE. A. Always consult the risk assessment and SDS to confirm what type of PPE and standard of PPE is required. 6. Disposal. Always consult the risk assessment and SDS to confirm what the disposal requirements for HCA are. The environment should never be contaminated. Waste refers to anything not usable, like offcuts, broken tools, or spoiled material. It can be hazardous, biohazardous, organic, or general waste. Good waste management follows the 4 Rs. Reduce, reuse, recondition, and recycle. 1. Reduce. Reduce or eliminate waste through proactive waste management. 2. Reuse. Where possible, consider reusing waste. 3. Recondition. Or repurpose waste to minimize the effect of waste on our environment. 4. Recycle. Consider waste separation and recycling. Much of the waste generated from a process can be recycled. When disposing of waste, remember to do so at registered sites. Dumping is illegal. When using a third party to remove waste, always ask for a waste manifest or safe disposal certificate. In an emergency, shut down your work, if possible. Raise the alarm. Remain calm, and evacuate to the nearest assembly point. Never return unless it is officially clear to do so. Know your escape routes. First aiders, firefighters, and emergency contacts. Always consult your local site authorities and ensure that you are familiar with the emergency protocols to be followed in the event of an emergency. Remember, 5 minutes can save a life. Take the time to work safely. Let's go through some general company rules. Please do the following. Conduct a risk assessment before starting work. Ensure that all tools and equipment are checked before use. Where walkways are provided, stay within them. Be aware of the working environment. Know who the health and safety representatives are. Make sure your work is conducted in safe manner. Obey site rules. Use tools and equipment in a safe manner. Use PPE at all times. Look after PPE. Stop unsafe acts. Use the correct equipment for the job. Please do not engage in horseplay. Do not use unsafe tools. Do not obstruct emergency equipment. Do not abuse or misuse anything provided in the interest of health and safety. Do not take any for granted. Do not work unsafe. Do not become distracted while working. Do not consume alcohol or drugs. Do not take shortcuts. Do not ignore or disobey instructions that are in the interest of health and safety. Do not continue work if an unsafe situation arises. Do not use tools and equipment other than the way it is recommended by manufacturers. Do not consume any chemicals. Do not use a cell phone while at work. This is the part where we hope you were paying attention. A test may be conducted to check your understanding. Remember, if you're unsure about anything, ask. Always consider, what can go wrong if? You may download a test from dgfturnkey.co.za/downloads and a competent person must evaluate it or send it to info@dgfturnkey.co.za. Thank you for participating in the HSE General Induction. And thank you for choosing DGF Turnkey as your health, safety and environmental compliance partner. Remember, safety begins with you.